This is Ureli,
And Bonnie.
and we are here with Tiny Lush Library.
Tiny Lush Library.
Yay! And we are here with The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. And we are going to do a quick summary about the text and go over some major themes as well as go into some historical context to give you an overview of the text. Okay, so let's begin with a summary. The Handmaid's Tale is about a dystopia in which women are considered only vessels for procreation, which is quite unfortunate. Gilead is the community in which the story takes place. Here women have been completely stripped of their power and it's extremely hierarchical. Offred is our protagonist. She is placed in a home with Serena Joy, the matriarch, the commander, the patriarch. Once a month she is forced to have sex with the commander while Serena Joy is in the room, and it's only in order to produce a baby.
Their baby that they own.
That they own, right, yeah. So the commander sneaks Offred into an underground sex club run by the government, and she finds her rebellious friend Mora working the scene. She begins a secret and illegal romance with Nick, who runs the house, who works there. There is a consistent fear of being watched by the eyes, which serve as spies in this text.
Or even anyone who could report you. Yeah, so it's this constant fear.
Fear of being observed. She learns of an underground network which is trying to overthrow the Gilead, so the rebels essentially, and the vindictive Serena Joy learns about her knights, Offred's knights, with the commander. As the novel concludes, a van is appearing up at the house, and Nick offers her a way out secretly, but she's unsure if he's a spy or if he's really trying to help her. So the text concludes with her having this moral dilemma and this hesitation, so we're not really sure what happens to her. The ending is quite ambiguous. You don't know how it ends, and it just leaves you with this hesitation. There are historical notes which are very important and are often criticized and analyzed, so make sure that you read that as well. Don't overlook it. Some of the major themes that are existent in this novel are feminism, loss of identity, the Panopticon, Eco-Feminism, ownership, motherhood, loss of innocence, and the inversion of power, which is really important. So Bonnie is going to go over some of the historical context for you now.
Alright, and so the historical context is pretty important. The novel was written in 1986, and this was, right in the heat of feminism. There was a lot of misunderstandings about what feminism was about, and there was also kind of some political stuff going on. Ronald Reagan had just been elected. The Equal Rights Act had failed to pass. Margaret Atwood was really concerned about all of this, especially this thing going on within the feminist camp itself called the Pornography Wars. And when you read this book, there is a lot of concerns about women's bodies, pornography in particular.
Yeah.
And so feminists during the time, some said, pornography is bad no matter what. It's demeaning towards women. Some said, well, yeah, it's demeaning, but we should protect civil liberties no matter what. And others even said, well, it just makes some feminist pornography. Margaret Atwood was particularly concerned with this kind of tendency of the anti-pornography feminists to side with these really right-winged religious zealots and fighting pornography, and she was worried that this was just going to completely set women's rights back. So she wrote this novel, and I have this quote from an academic scholar, Angela Laflen, that I found really interesting. She's examining the problem of the image in The Handmaid's Tale. She writes, "The use of visual culture to aestheticize political and asocial life accelerated to the point that image and reality became nearly impossible to distinguish. Atwood suggests that not only civil liberties, but humanity itself is threatened by increasingly degraded and dehumanizing visual culture." Okay, so this really reverberated with me, given the visuality of culture now, extreme visuality, superficiality in the digital age. I say that when we're on a YouTube channel, but
we're taking full advantage of that. But
positives and negatives, right?
It's something to note. It's very noteworthy.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because she was concerned about this at that time, and it really has just become more relevant today.
It's been amplified today.
So she's writing this in the middle of all of that historical stuff going on, and so one of the main things I'm analyzing here is loss of identity, especially as women. So this community, Gilead, they have completely confined and barred women from education, you know, I mean, any agency really. They can't go out by themselves, they have to cover their face. So basically all the responsibility for not becoming sexual objects is on them because it's their job as women.
Right.
And it's done all in the name of protection, which is just kind of reflective of this hyperbolized neo-Victorian idea of that women need to be protected.
Yeah.
You know, so it's interesting because Atwood's looking at the problem of women being seen as only fertility objects versus women being only sexualized as sexual objects, which
Right.
also happens in the novel.
Yeah. Through Mora.
Yeah, so can you talk about
So yeah, so if we break down the word dystopia, it's an imaginary place in which conditions are heightened. They are worsened. It's an extreme representation of oppression, abuse, and terror. In the book, there's a very curious inversion of power between the commander and Offred and Serena Joy. But the two major themes that I want to cover right now are eco-criticism and feminism, and combine those two and get eco-feminism. So let's start with eco-criticism. That is the application of ecology and ecological concepts to the study of literature. So essentially, it is combining the connection to the physical environment, to nature, and to literature to see how that's working. This is usually done in the hopes of raising awareness of the human interaction with the natural world. Feminism critiques culture for being fundamentally patriarchal and for creating an imbalance of power that marginalizes women and their work. Feminism is usually taken incorrectly by our current society.
This is a very kind of the academic definition, working definition
of what feminism is. Now, feminism usually houses queer theory, which places a focus on heterosexual privilege and the marginalization of homosexuals and their work. Feminists work to expose current oppressive ideologies in order for everyone to be fully realized and appreciated and have a voice within our current culture.
Any marginalized person.
Any marginalized person or group of people. So ecofeminism connects these two schools of thought in order to highlight the marginalized aspect of culture. You can apply this to this text when we look at page 73. We're going to do a little close reading to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to see how this ecofeminism concept applies to a specific moment in the text. So it begins. I sink down into my body as into a swamp, fenland, where only I know the footing. I become the earth I set my ear against for rumors of the future. Each month I watch for blood, fearfully, for when it comes it means failure. I have failed once again to fulfill the expectations of others which have become my own. Okay, so if we place this eco-criticism or ecofeminism read on this text or in this section, we can see how she is comparing her physical body and the insides of her body to nature. She is comparing it to a swampland where only she knows a footing, where she's the only one who knows that internalized aspect of herself, and she's also connecting it to her menstruation. She looks for blood to see if she has been a success or not, and to her, success has become what they have wanted it to become.
She's lost control of her own body. It's now someone else's, and
so it's somebody else's concern now. So what she likes is dependent on what people have told her that she has to do with her own body, the way that she feels about her own body. Now, an interesting approach by scholar Jane Armbruster brings up the connection between memory, politics, and our own humanity. Here's a quote from one of her texts. Social control and the very existence of the Gilead depend upon suppression and manipulation of human feelings. With feelings denied, Gileadians have no experience of knowing they belong in a human community. With no way of knowing they belong to one another, they can spy on one another, limit their sexuality to procreation, hate and collaborate in persecuting gender traitors and people of color, surrender their children and their souls to the state. So here is the suppression of our humanity and being connected to another person through this institution, through this culture, through this dystopia. So this is a little bit about what you can do with this beautiful text. Margaret Atwood's text is wonderful, and I hope that everyone has an opportunity to read it at some point.
Yeah, it's really a beautiful story. I recommend it. And yeah, so I guess to conclude our first.
So we are concluding our first
review.
video.
Tiny Lush Library.
Tiny Lush Library. Please subscribe, and we will make some more videos. And you're always welcome to give us suggestions on books you'd like us to do a little analysis on. So thank you for watching, and please subscribe. Bye.